My name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. It's the middle of the week, the first in early September, Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. We're now at 698 days of what the world's most significant genocide organization of academics has said is a genocide. News from the last 24 hours. I just finished watching some videos, and so I'm feeling quite raw in my spirit, but I heard a report tonight that the bombing of Gaza City has officially begun. I saw some videos. It's hard to watch what's happening and to not be broken just by seeing it and paying attention to it. Imagine living it. A security force today estimated that 70 to 80,000 people have been displaced from Gaza City. That's over the last 3 days, 72 hours. I'd encourage you, one of the videos that I was just watching was by an organization that I'm not very familiar with. I asked our staff team to look it up. It's called Bystanders No More. And it offers a video that's about 5 minutes. It's a pretty comprehensive summary of the distribution of aid in Gaza, of UNRWA, the UN Refugee Agency that was shut down, of the Gaza Humanitarian Aid Foundation, its failures. It's essentially an explainer of GHF. And the goal of it is to urge representatives to fund UNRWA and to ban GHF. CMEP would be in alignment, certainly with the funding of UNRWA and the banning of the militarization of aid. You can find that video on YouTube. It's by Bystanders No More. The IDF chief of staff, Zamir, today directly challenged Prime Minister Netanyahu over his plans to expand the Gaza war. We've been hearing about that growing tension. Officials say Zamir has highlighted the potential risks to the hostages. There's 48 that still remain in Gaza, but also the risk to Israeli troops on the ground. I've given updates in past days about how the Israeli military is finding it difficult to find enough troops to be able to continue to fight. There are, I believe it's a couple hundred, if not more, reservists that have been called up to duty or whose length of service has been extended. So Zamir is raising a lot of objections about the war, including humanitarian and strategic ramifications, the displacement of 1 million people that's going to result from this new offensive of Gaza City. And Zamir has urged ministers to consider the latest ceasefire proposal that was brought forward by Egypt and Qatar. That agreement was accepted by Hamas. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Israel did respond today. The UK is working on getting critically sick and injured children of Gaza to the UK where they could receive treatment. They say that they're outraged by Israel not allowing enough aid into the territory. And Palestinian Vice President Hussein al-Sheikh wrote to Secretary of State Marco Rubio urging that the U.S. reconsider their ban on the Palestinian Authority and the PA and the PLO, where Palestinian political officials were denied visas to be able to attend the General Assembly that's coming up in a couple of weeks, the UN General Assembly. French President Macron described Rubio's decision to exact that denial of visas unacceptable, and that Palestinian representation has to be ensured in accordance with the host country agreement. Now, I heard before where Arafat was banned from the United Nations. I just learned this today. I did not know this previously. When he was banned from coming to New York City, Yasser Arafat, the UN moved the meeting to Geneva. So this is not reporting, but just what I'm hearing from my contacts, that it's a possibility the UN General Assembly could be moved out of New York City and to Geneva. Today, in the last 24 hours, Israeli fire killed 113 Palestinians, including 33 aid seekers, and an additional 304 people were wounded. That's been reported from the health ministry. According to numbers from the last 24 hours, 6 people, including 1 child, died from hunger and malnutrition. In terms of what's going on with the ceasefire negotiation, Hamas reiterated their willingness to accept a comprehensive agreement after Trump called on them to release 20 living Israeli hostages. Hamas stated today in a post that President Trump said he called them to release immediately the 20 hostages, reiterating that it's waiting for Israel's response to a comprehensive ceasefire agreement. So Hamas just said that they were willing to accept that agreement that would include the establishment of a technocratic government that would control Gaza. It just was announced today that Israel rejected that agreement. And, it was based on things that Israel had agreed to in the past. Haaretz called this more spin that contains nothing new. The Prime Minister's office reiterated that the war can end immediately on the conditions set forward by the cabinet. I'm assuming those are those 5 conditions I talked about previously, which includes the disarmament of Hamas. That the 5 points that Netanyahu talked about also includes the PA not being able to be in governance in Gaza as well. So I don't really know, the target is constantly moving. So I don't really know what Netanyahu's office means. But the statement reiterated demands for the demilitarization. Oh, here, I'm going to tell you right now, the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, Israeli security control over the Gaza Strip, the establishment of an alternative government that does not educate for terrorism and does not dispatch terrorism and will not threaten Israel. So that's different than Netanyahu's 5 points. The statement said only these conditions will prevent Hamas from rearming and repeating the October 7th massacre over and over again, as it promises. One of the things that we talk about is the longer this goes on, the more future terrorists that are being created. That's a very crass way of putting it. But when you kill children's families, dozens of their family members, when you rob children of their future, when you bomb children for 2 years straight, when you starve them and their loved ones, what do you think that they grow up to become? Defense Minister Yats echoed the remarks. I won't go through his comments. I won't go through Smotrich's comments. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces killed a 25-year-old during a military operation in a refugee camp. This was in the north of the West Bank. The Shin Bet Security Service announced over the past weeks it has arrested a cell of Hamas militants in the south of the West Bank who allegedly were trying to assassinate the National Security Minister Ben Gvir using explosive drones. In Israel, President Herzog, the current president, announced that he plans to go to the Vatican this Thursday. He'll be meeting with Pope Leo XIV. Tens of thousands of people today, in the middle of the week, demonstrated outside of Netanyahu's home. This was a peak of the day of protests calling for a hostage deal. This is going to continue over coming days. I told a Palestinian American I was meeting with today, the people of Israel have the power to change this, just the way that the people of the United States do. And so it's really, really moving to see these protests. Mothers of captive soldiers, Nimrod Cohen and Matan Angras, called on Israelis to bring the protests directly to the prime minister. Netanyahu responded and criticized the police's lack of enforcement and accused the protesters of trying to murder him and his family and acting like fascist militias. Protesters in Jerusalem today barricaded themselves on the roof of the National Library. They set trash cans and tires on fire, damaging parked cars and prompting the evacuation of residents from nearby buildings in an area near the residence. 2 people in their 60s and 80s were arrested, on suspicion of lighting the fires. We don't believe in any violent resistance, but I thought, good for anyone that's out protesting nonviolently who's in their 60s or 80s. In Lebanon, there were drones that dropped 4 grenades very close to UN peacekeeping forces that were near roadblocks in South Lebanon. UNIFIL announced that today. This was one of the most serious attacks on UNIFIL personnel and their assets. According to UNIFIL, no one was hurt in the attack, but Israeli news reported that there were IDFs on Lebanon South today. They said 15 strikes were conducted. Just for the record, Israel is supposed to be in a ceasefire agreement between Hezbollah and Israel, but they had 15 strikes on South Lebanon today. The explosions were heard in the north of Israel. The municipality of Kiryat Shimona in North Israel confirmed that they were the result of IDF activity. There was also a missile launched from Yemen this morning that carried cluster munitions. The IDF intercepted 2 missiles today, according to their reports, one triggering sirens in Tel Aviv, the other in Jerusalem, the West Bank, and the Dead Sea area. In an update, the UN said that the Iranian-backed Houthis detained at least 19 UN employees on Sunday during raids in their capital city of Sana'a. They said that a UN spokesperson, the UN is calling for these UN workers to be immediately released. 18 of those who are held are Yemeni staffers and 1 international employee. I mentioned before the International Association of the Genocide Scholars, the largest professional organization of scholars studying genocide, came to a resolution over Israel and Gaza on Monday, September 1st. Meanwhile, in the US, our president posted on Truth Social calling on Hamas to immediately give back the 20 hostages, saying that things will change rapidly. He did not refer to any of the slain hostages whose bodies are still held, only calling for the release of living ones. Hostages' families responded by clarifying this nightmare cannot end for our nation until all 45 hostages are accounted for, of course, including those who are dead and alive. I wanted to close with an update, as I typically do, from Christians on the Middle East. I was just in Jerusalem a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of August, and I had the privilege of sitting with Cardinal Pizzaballa, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem. He was just in Gaza a few weeks ago alongside the Patriarch of the Greek Orthodox Church, Theophilus. Listen to what Cardinal Pizzaballa says about Gaza. Use these words as prayers. These are words he shared at different times, actually last year, October and July of 2024. So we're now approaching 2 years. 2 years of this. Listen to the words of Cardinal Pizzaballa. The important thing is to be honest. The church must stand with those who suffer always. The church cannot be neutral. I cannot go to my parishioners in Gaza who are under bombardment and say we are neutral. However, while it's true the church cannot be neutral, it's also true it cannot be a part of the conflict. So that's not actually the direct quote. That's actually a commentary on it, where someone said, in this polarized environment, we shouldn't take sides that cancel each other out. It's not easy to be true, but we have to have courage to speak the truth and to know how to express closeness to all who suffer. And I agree that on an individual level, we must love our neighbor and our enemy. We must care for all who suffer, as the Beatitudes tell us. And we must stand for both righteousness and justice and stand up against the abuse of power. So I think we do need to choose sides, but it's not the sides of Israelis versus Palestinians. It's the side of advocating for peace and justice and all of humanity. And that's what it means to take a stand. Those who stand for peace and work towards it, and those who do not. Cardinal Pizzaballa said, I keep being told I need to be neutral. Come with me to Gaza. Speak to my people who have lost everything, and then tell me I have to be neutral. It doesn't work. That was Cardinal Pizzaballa in July of 2024, more than a year ago. May God go before us in our efforts towards peace. In the name of Christ, amen.